Chris was the writer when we met, and I was the first one to publish a book. Now, I can't tell you how many times people have asked me how Chris handles my success, as if it's going to be a problem in our relationship. Yeah. The assumption is I have to manage Chris's ego and almost apologise for publishing books with my name on it and not his.
Incredible.
Hello there, welcome to Separate Bathrooms. My name's Daddo. This is my wife.
Wait, you don't... Hang on.
This is my setup for this whole show.
Yeah, but let's just have a little bit of quality here. You're Daddo and I'm Ali Daddo. You
do happen to be my wife.
I know.
Is that not okay?
Well, I'm just thinking about this book and like being equal, and it's like you're sort of claiming me already as the title and introducing me in a certain way. It's like, and I'm Ali. Like, it's like, wait up.
Wow. Okay, we're into it today. The book that we're talking about, or that we will have the authors of, is called Raising Girls Who Like Themselves.
Yes.
The authors are Dr. Christopher Scanlon and Kasey Edwards. They're coming into the bathroom. They're going to bring their two daughters in, Ivy and Violet, who have promised to be quiet, but
one of them's got a cough, so you never know. We might hear that throughout the podcast.
But that's okay.
Bless her.
These guys are awesome. They're married, they're writers, and they're passionate about parenting, human rights, and making a difference.
They write together and have had huge success. And, of course, their latest book, as we said, is Raising Girls Who Like Themselves. It's out now, and it's a book that everyone really could have on their bedside table.
Let's bring them into the bathroom before we start fighting anymore. Here they come.
Hi, guys.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for having us on. It's such a pleasure to see you guys, because I just want to tell you, Alison, that when I was growing up in suburban Brisbane, every single girl that I knew, including myself, wanted to be you or to be your best friend. So it's really nice to be talking to you after all these years.
All these years. Well, yeah. It's an honour to hear that. Thank you, Kasey. Look, we are just so thrilled to have you both here. You two are such a dynamic couple, and I am just chomping at the bit to sort of dive right in and talk to you about your recent book. But we just thought that we just wanted to get to know you two as a couple first.
Yeah, and so since our podcast is about relationships and not so much perfect matches, but but relationships, you guys have a very interesting one. How did you meet first?
We met on rsvp.com.
Yep.
So I actually, I treated finding a partner like applying for a job. I put in my criteria, and there were 16 men in Melbourne who met my criteria. So I just decided to work through the list until I got to number 9 and didn't need to go any further.
So you didn't do the countdown all the way to number 1. You just stopped at 9.
I stopped. Yeah.
But you might have stopped.
You
might have stopped if I had given all of the information.
If Chris had been honest on his RSVP form, we would not be here today. Let's put it that way.
We're all normal until we get to know each other, right?
No, I left some... I actually didn't read... I didn't scroll down, basically, on the RSVP profile because there were some things which I left off or I should have read on your profile.
No, what you left off was your religion. Because I had a previous relationship with someone who was religious and I'm not, and I was never accepted by their family. So I decided that I would only date someone who was either atheist or agnostic.
Yeah.
And then by date 3, Chris tells me he's Catholic. I was like, hang on a minute. But by that stage, I was head over heels and it was too late.
And you've worked it out.
Yeah.
Well done.
But there are practicing Catholics and there are not practicing Catholics.
Yeah.
Where do you fit, Chris, in that?
Well, I'm one of those Catholics who, probably disagree with about 95% of what Rome says. So, and I think I'm a good Catholic in doing that. But, others may have a different opinion of that.
So what was the attraction? You fell in love pretty fast.
We did. Well, I fell in love with Chris's writing. I Googled him first before our first date. And to me, good writing is like porn. And, he's such a good writer.
Did you used to write for Penthouse? Is that what? Did you write the forum letters?
No, I wrote. I was a freelancer. I was writing opinion pieces for The Age, the Sydney Morning Herald at the time, but freelance. So there wasn't a huge body of work. That was one a month or so at that stage.
I mean, that would have given you a good insight, wouldn't it? Really, Kasey, because it's his opinion piece, so it lets you know. Yeah, I agree with this guy. Like what he's saying really is attractive to me. So I get that. How you would fall in love with someone through their writing.
Yeah, I could really see his unfiltered values that weren't coming across, in the dim light of the pub we were in.
Yeah. You're raising 2 daughters. You're writing books together. And look, some would say it's crazy to work with your spouse, right, honey? Do you reckon that's crazy? I don't know.
Well, we seem to be okay for the time we spend in front of the microphone. We work it out off mic and camera.
How do you guys do it? Like how many books have you written together, actually?
So we've written 8 books. Only 3 of them have Chris's name on them as well.
Yeah, okay.
But we've absolutely been a team in all of them.
Yeah, fantastic.
So the first few that I wrote under my name, Chris edited them and, really helped. He was fundamental in the process.
Yeah.
So I would say we have written 8 books together.
Writing is such a personal experience. Are you always on the same page with the writing? How do you split the work? How does it work with the 2 of you?
So we're not always on the same page. I would have to say that the biggest fight we have ever had in our relationship was whether or not the magical chalice should be broken before or after the fight scene in one of our fantasy books.
This is a thing that didn't exist. Oh no, it does exist, but not in the world we created.
Yeah.
We're talking about fairies and unicorns. And this chalice, which actually does exist, but we kind of had put it into this whole context. And I think that probably went on for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
I love it.
But we got through that. But I think that the other thing is that we kind of perform different roles. Kasey's the brains of the outfit.
That is not true.
She really runs ahead and she creates the plot and the characters and the actual story. And my magical superpower is structural editing. I'm a terrible copy editor, but I know structure. And that's what I do with the world building of a lot of the stuff we do with the fiction.
With our book, with Raising Girls, you did a lot of the research too. Given that you're an academic and all.
Yeah.
You mentioned that big fight was over a cello and the magical
chalice.
Oh, a chalice.
Chalice.
Okay. Oh, a chalice. So I was going to go down the musical road there. Right.
See, the stakes are high, aren't they? Now you understand.
Yes, the chalice. It changes everything. I see why you fought for 2 hours over it. So how is there, you've acknowledged part of my question, is there any fighting between you guys? I guess the big part is we all have fights in our relationships. We all have disagreements. How do you guys resolve your disagreements?
Yeah, I would say we have conflict, but we very rarely have fights. And this was actually before I married Chris. A friend told me that I shouldn't marry him because I'd be bored because we didn't fight. And there's this whole idea that you need fighting in a relationship to have passion and drama, and you need to, fight so you can come back together. We're not really fighters. So we prefer to talk things out, which is what we do. And that's how we deal with most of our conflict. And, the times when we have had our fights have been when, we've had a new baby and we've been sleep deprived, or my breastfeeding wasn't working, or, there's something else going on.
Yeah.
And I think the key to us working together creatively, but also working together in marriage, is that we actually respect each other and like each other. So we don't want to hurt the other person.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you relate to that?
I do. I agree with that. There's a lot of people that talk about make-up sex after a big fight, and I've never experienced that myself.
Hang on.
Because I just don't get the. No, I don't get the look, whatever works in your relationship works in your relationship, of course. But I can't stand fighting with you. It is just I cannot stand it. So I would much rather any day of the week, just as we do, sit down and talk things through.
I think it's that idea also that's the key to a healthy relationship too. I think, there's going to be conflict and there are going to be fights, and people deal with it however they deal with it. That's fine. But I think there's this narrative now that is the key to a healthy relationship, and that's kind of what I think that's what we both find quite weird. It's really, that's it. that we've solved it. You know?
I think, if getting back to raising girls, I think it is really important to counteract that narrative for our children, to think that it is romantic to want to tear each other apart so you can then come back together and make up. You know, for example, we have neighbours who fight brutal, awful fights regularly. They're yelling at each other and throwing things, and our girls are 11 and 6, but we still take that opportunity to talk to them about this is not what relationships are supposed to be like. And if you're ever in a relationship where someone talks to you like that, or you are prompted to talk to them like that, then something's wrong. You need to fix it or get out.
Absolutely. And we know people whose language to each other, you can't, as we say, you can't unring a bell. And if you've said the most hideous things to your partner, even in the heat of the moment, I feel like that's a hard one to come back from. You know, and I just think we're good fighters. We're never name callers. We never say anything that's unkind to each other in a fight. We'll talk about how we feel. But we hear from our friends and there's like a lot of hideous name calling, and I just think, that's not good. That just chips away.
You can't unsay an unkind word, you know. You can't unhear it. I like those billboards, you know, which is, you can't not see it. Now you've seen it, you know.
You can't unsee it,
I think it's also a privilege to be able to fight well, because at the foundation of being able to fight well is mutual respect and fundamental equality. So we don't bring the worst out in each other because we always want the best for each other. And this has played out in our relationship. So Chris was the writer when we met, and I was the first one to publish a book. Now, I can't tell you how many times people have asked me how Chris handles my success. As if it's going to be a problem in our relationship. And I've heard many stories over the years of my creative friends whose relationships break down when they become more successful than their partner. So because we have this...
Or not even as successful, like just as successful. They just kind of like they do the same thing, but they kind of feel like, well, I'm not better than you. I'm not kind of, ahead of you. And it's that kind of domination, which is weird.
Yeah. Is that a male-female thing, do you think?
I reckon it is.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when you look at how relationships have traditionally been, the man has always had more power, more status. And that was something in our young adult fantasy series that we wanted to address is why does the man have to be more powerful to be desirable? So we actually wanted to challenge that power dynamic that a woman can be desirable and she can actually choose a partner and love a partner and have a good relationship with someone who isn't more powerful and dominant.
And nobody's ever asked me the same question, though. Nobody's ever sort of said to me, oh, how do you feel? Like, you must feel like, that's the other thing. Nobody's ever kind of raised that with me, which is...
Yeah, the assumption is I have to manage Chris's ego and almost apologise for publishing books with my name on it.
Isn't that incredible?
Chris, how did you feel about it?
Great. It was like, this is success. It's kind of, it's wonderful. And, I mean, getting a book published is huge anyway. And even if you go the self-publishing route, that's a huge amount of work. And then to see that through and then trying to do the publicity and get it out there. The fact that Kasey went out there and got a lot of knockbacks as well from
over 200
agents and publishers. And I saw my role as kind of like, yep, let's just go on to the next one. Let's send it off to this person. Let's just go. So that was kind of what I felt my role was in that situation and circumstance.
And we have accomplished so much more together than we ever would have done apart.
Absolutely,
and I think that is the secret in choosing a partner. Like, choose your biggest cheerleader.
That's right, honey. We were just saying that yesterday.
Your timing with that is impeccable. We spent 2 hours sitting out in the fresh air yesterday having pretty much this exact conversation. Well, part of what we do in our relationship is we don't schedule it. It's usually around a lot of stress, something that's happened the day before, and then we go, okay, what's going on? And then we'll go and we'll find some time away from the kids and have a quiet chat about just where are we up to. And Ali reminded me yesterday of what she's done in supporting me, and my career and life, and how that's truly what a partner, like you say, what a partnership is all about. It's a lot more than rolling between the sheets and getting fired up that way. There's a lot more aspects to having a successful relationship than just, having a great root every now and again or three times a week.
I'm seeing this play out with some of my friends now who are back on the dating scene as middle-aged women, and they're getting very few responses because they're not 20 and firm and perky anymore. And I think that is just a really great natural filter for these women, because it's like, if the man only wants you because you're going to tumble in the sheets and look good on his arm, then that's not a partnership, and you're better off without it, right? So in a way, it's a good way to filter out the people who genuinely are not looking for an emotional and intellectual connection.
Your latest book is Raising Girls Who Like Themselves. What a great title. And it's been 10 years in the making. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
Research-wise?
Yeah, and the reason is that we were motivated to become good parents for our own daughters. But I think, so my deepest motivation was that I wanted my girls to grow up liking themselves more than I did when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I just did what parented the way I was parented and the way other people were parented, then I was not going to have that outcome.
Yeah.
And I looked around. So people like to just point to today's society or social media or iPhones and think that that's the problem for girls. But I didn't like myself. My friends didn't like themselves. And you go back generations, and we've got this wrong in terms of women growing up genuinely feeling like they're good enough and having confidence to be their authentic self and to take up space in the world.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned in the beginning about seeing me as a model, and everyone expects me to have this great body image about myself because I was a model. It's actually the opposite, because that's what I was known for, is a physicality. And no one ever said to me, oh, wow, you're so smart. Oh, you're so kind. Look at your creativity. It was just about how I looked. So I'm constantly battling, even as a 51-year-old, this idea that I'm not enough, I'm somewhat stupid, or I can't do this or I can't do that, because it was my looks that mattered. And it's just, so that's going back many, many years. And as you were saying, Kasey, it's so true. Like, my mother grew up not feeling particularly body confident. And I'm sure generationally, we've had such little sovereignty about our bodies as women that, of course, it goes back hundreds of years, So this book, I just think is, it's so interesting and it's so timely.
Yeah, I actually think on the issue of body image, I realised this before I had my daughters. I realised that it didn't matter how you looked. Being beautiful was not enough to give you body confidence, as you just said, right? And because I had interviewed, as a journalist, I'd interviewed women who were absolutely met this standard of beauty, who were crippled by body image problems. And then I met women who were well outside it, not many of them, there were a few unicorns, whose body image didn't affect them at all, because that's not how they defined their worth. That's not what their identity was built on, other people's perceptions of their beauty. And that's one of the things we wanted to talk about and tackle in our book, because we really think that the advice that parents are given to build their daughter's body confidence is wrong. Telling your daughter over and over again that she's beautiful is actually part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Yeah.
Chris, you're obviously a male. How do you relate to what we're talking about here as far as for females or even for men, with this body consciousness or the stereotypes?
Oh, look, I think I think it's a huge issue for women. And if you just got to be open to open your eyes to way and think which the media, social media, the beauty industry have defined it. Define these issues, and you can't miss it. I think it's a wonder that any girl or woman comes out with a healthy body image, given the advice that we see, that we kind of, we're going to keep telling you you're beautiful, love the skin you're in, that kind of message all the time. All it does is put that focus back on the body and your appearance, and that's the only thing that girls and women are valued for. And of course, we occasionally see those kind of messages and campaigns for men who don't fit the six-pack, chiseled pecs, Calvin Klein model as well. But it's not an all-encompassing thing for men. It's an occasional thing, and even those campaigns which do try and broaden out, the accepted male body, they are kind of, I never have conversations about them. They're kind of in the news cycle for about 24 hours. People kind of think it's a bit of a laugh. Oh, isn't it good that they're doing this? And then they move on. And the reason is because I don't think boys and men are defined in quite the same way. That it's an occasional thing, but it's not an all-encompassing definition. And I think for the way in which we position girls and women in our culture, it is often. And that's kind of the most important. And then there's other things that come under that. But really, it comes back to that.
We need to re-educate males, don't we? Starting with boys, about how to deal with and speak with girls. Absolutely.
I think the messages that boys and the men they grow into, they get and then enact, are completely objectifying of women. I went to an all-boys school.
Me too.
And you would know that when you hear people like the conversations. Oh no, we're changing it. We've got this education program rolling out. I never quite believe that's enough. It's kind of, I'm never convinced, because I'm thinking, how would I and the guys I went to school with have responded to that? We would have listened attentively in the classroom, and then it wouldn't have changed because we were policing each other. And it's not the teacher or the counsellor or the educator can say whatever they want, but what the important thing is what happens when that person walks away and the boys talk amongst themselves and they police each other. And men do it too. Men police how other men talk about other women. And if you're seen to be woke or politically correct or whatever, you will hear about it pretty quickly. Not from all men. I'm not, but for a sizable man, there is a sizable and very loud voice amongst men which will police other men. And boys hear it too.
Yeah.
I find that if I do that, if I do police, I'm being company of men and I'm going, guys, what we're talking about is not appropriate. Quite a few times I've not been invited to the table again.
You feel it. You feel the effect. Yeah. You pay a price for doing that.
Yeah, you do. But I think it's important to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And women need to do it too, because we can be our own worst enemies. Women pull apart other women about how they look. I think we've got shows on TV that are constantly pitting women against other women, and I think that that's part of the undoing of the culture that we need to do as well. And women, I find women are so at the base of every woman. I find them incredibly supportive and loving. Like just being on Instagram and the amount of people that I find are so kind and supportive, complete strangers. And yet we have this idea that women are bitchy with each other, we're competitive, and I just think that's another thing we need to erase as well. And that starts young too. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think that culturally we are trained that men stick together at all costs, as we are seeing playing out in Parliament. It does not matter how badly a man behaves. He can count on his mates to support him and bunker down at all costs. And women are trained to be the opposite. When times get tough and the stakes are high, women, the narrative is that we tear each other apart. And I think that is a narrative that is used to diminish and dismiss women. Oh, they're just being bitchy. They can't even sort themselves out. How can we actually give them positions of power or authority?
Yeah.
But it is also a narrative that runs through being a girl. And that's something that we write about in our book, that there's so much pressure on girls to achieve in every aspect of their life. And it is really hard for girls to actually have a sisterhood and make really good friends when their friends are always their competitors and their foes.
Yeah.
And that we need to allow girls to be allies and to not measure them in relationship to the other girls around them.
In the book, it's a fantastic book, and you've broken down things really, really simply, which I so appreciate, and easy to read, particularly the qualities of what a girl needs to thrive in a world that tells them that they are already flawed just from the sheer fact of being a girl. And honestly, reading them brought tears to my eyes because, as I was saying, as a woman, I'm still learning how to do that myself. I'm still healing all of that. So I can only imagine what my life would have been like had I have had those qualities from a young child. And there are also the titles of your chapters in here, and we've got them written down. And the first one you've got is A Girl Who Likes Herself Has a Power Perspective. What do you mean by that?
Well, a power perspective is really about seeing the world and seeing your relationship to the world in terms of what you can do. And it's about seeing the world out there as you are an actor. You can change your situation, but before that, you can change your perception of the world. So something can happen, but you can interpret it in a way that's productive to you. And it's trying to get away from the idea that you're just a victim of circumstance, that you're just tossed around by external events. And it's really putting at the heart of it, like, what do you think? What's most important here? So one of the examples, one of the little exercises we do with our girls often is that girls will come, children I think generally, but girls will often come to you and they will ask you what you think of their drawing or their dress or whatever it is, whatever's new, whatever they've done. And so one of the things we do is try and turn that around and say, well, what do you think? Mm-hmm. So rather than looking for that external validation and then having that then shape how you feel about it, asking them what they feel about it. How are they happy with it?
Yeah.
And if they're happy with it, then great. If they're not, then you can ask another question of, well, what would you do differently next time? So you're kind of getting to think about kind of, again, what they can do rather than, oh, I'm terrible at drawing, all my dresses are ugly, that sort of mindset. So it's really trying to get them to think about, you are the most important person here, and in terms of, your drawing on your dress or whatever, what do you feel? Like, what do you think? And really getting, rather than seeking that external validation, because if you can get that right very early on, people spend their whole life looking for that external validation. If you can try and get them very early on, your kids to kind of think, no, what I think is actually really important here. It's one of those little micro moments where you can flip that narrative.
It really touched me when you're talking about outside validation, because as a performer and an actor, that is often what drives a lot of people in the entertainment business. And when you don't get it, your world can fall apart pretty damn quick. And as you say, when you capture that early and you can turn that around, what a beautiful thing for a human. I'm not just going to say it's for girls, because it's for boys too. Your other chapter headings are A Girl Who Likes Herself Has Body Confidence. A girl who likes herself owns her body. A girl who likes herself is calm. A girl who likes herself is independent and masterful. It's great words. A girl who likes herself has strong relationships. A girl who likes herself is herself. That is authentic. Do you guys have a favorite one? Is there a baby in here that you go, oh, this is the one that I love? Because they're all fantastic.
I think for me, it's the last one.
Yeah.
And, because what we all want, all of us, is to want to be seen, loved, and validated for who we are in this moment. And there is so much pressure on kids to reach the next bar, be something else, to meet the expectations that parents have had for them before they were even born. Mm. And so we talk in our book the difference between stone parenting and seed parenting. Now, we started off as stone parents, and there's a lot of pressure on parents to be stone parents. And both of these come from places of love. But a stone parent is when you see your child as a precious piece of marble and you think it is your job to chisel away and sculpt this kid into the perfect version that you think they should be. Whereas a seed parent is when you see your child as this precious, beautiful, unique seed. And our job is to provide the supports and the right environment so they can grow and bloom in their own way and in their own time.
Mm. What do you want most for people to take away from this book?
I would like people to take away the goal of parenting, because there's a lot of talk about what we want as parents. We want our children to just be happy. We want them to be successful. We want them to not have anxiety. We want them to win a gold medal or whatever.
Yeah.
And if we reframe it to, we want our daughters to grow up liking themselves, then that will bring a lot more clarity to our parenting decisions, not just in the moment, but the long-term consequences of our parenting decisions.
I think the other thing I would like people to take away from it is the idea that this isn't a massive intervention that you have to do. You know, that these are, and what we detail in the book are, you know, small everyday instances. They are about taking advantage of those micro moments where, and it's that consistency over time. It's not having this, you know, massive life-changing intervention where you go away for a weekend and you all work out that stuff. This is kind of a constant process, and it's like tending a garden. You know, to like the seed parenting idea. It's tending that garden and just kind of, you know, having those constant conversations and giving that time to your kids as well.
Yeah, you're so right, Christopher. We were talking about this on the way over in the car, that one thing we used to do with our kids when they were little, and particularly, you know, because it was with the girls, not so much with our son, is every time they were told, oh, isn't she, look how gorgeous she is. She's so beautiful. She's so pretty. We would say, yes, and she has the most beautiful heart. Yes, and you should see her drawings. Yes, and she's so clever. So the compliment would be there. We weren't taking it away, but we would add something in about who they are. So it's not just left with, she's so pretty. And I get it. You know, I get we want to compliment in that way, though. Just that little shift for us really changed our perspective, and I hope it changed our kids' perspective on themselves. But that was a really big one for us to understand that that's what we needed to do.
Yeah, and a lot of people I've found, mate, they'll say those sort of things like, isn't she pretty, and thinking that that's the best thing to say because that's what they know. And so they go, yeah, but I didn't say anything wrong. It's like, no, you didn't, yet there's more to it. And I think this is where with your book, Raising Girls Who Like Themselves, the knowledge and the wisdom that you guys have is really helping and assisting our communities to change the dialogue and be a bit more curious, you know, and change things around so that we are raising more rounded kids who are going to become better parents. Whenever
we have these crises in the media, you know, with girls or boys, and we wring our hands and we say, we have to do something different. I was like, well, yes, here is something different. Here is something that we can start doing, the little things that add up over time.
We have we'd like to wind up our podcast with a thing, it's called the 2-minute shower, bearing in mind we are into water conservation, so it's also known as keep your answers brief as you can, because it's not going to be a 2-minute shower in the bathroom. So we've got a few questions for you. So I'll start off with the first one. Favourite moment together?
Mine was when Chris proposed. He didn't do the patriarchal down on one knee, I'm going to claim you. He handed me an iPod with Pride and Prejudice, my favourite show on it, and asked me if I'd like to spend my life with him.
Oh,
dude.
Yes. Nice.
Raise the bar.
Nice. Well done, you. What about you, Chris?
I would go with the same one. But I also liked our wedding too. That was a lot of fun.
Cheap and cheerful.
Cheap and cheerful.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, number 2. What do you miss when you are not together? What do you miss
conversation.
about each other? Yeah.
Conversation. Yeah. Kasey's my best friend. So if I don't have the conversation, and we call each other. But I think Kasey was first of all a bit weirded out by that.
Yes, when we first started dating, and he'd call me 3 times in the day. I was like, "Ooh, what's going on here? Is that needy?" But it turns out we just really like talking to each other.
Aww.
What about you? What do you miss when you're not together, Kasey?
I miss the laughs. Chris makes me laugh, and he also laughs at my jokes, so I find that validating too.
Yeah, it's always nice. Yeah. Okay, what's a way you show each other kindness?
Cups of tea.
Yeah.
We have this joke that our language of love is hot caffeinated beverages. You know that book, The Love Languages or whatever it is?
Yeah.
That's our language of love, I think. That's our most consistent one.
I also think listening, that when one of us speaks, we can be sure that we're going to be heard.
Over a cup of tea.
Over a cup of tea.
What's better than that? Tea and listening. You may have already given this one away, but who is the best joke teller?
Kasey.
I'm going to claim that because Chris does dad jokes.
Yeah.
Right. What happens to men when they have children?
Yeah.
Kasey's...
We have a need to be funny and entertaining.
Kasey is so sharp, right, and nails it. You know, just picks out the thing.
Thank you, lovely.
Yeah.
Aw.
Hey, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, with each other.
Oh,
No,
in
just
life.
in life, general.
Oh, I think a lack of understanding of and acknowledgement of privilege. When people don't understand, they pass judgments on someone not realising that they are in a position of privilege.
Yeah, inequality and like the inability to understand inequality and think it's kind of, you know, it's just choices. It's just individual choices. I think that really gets me. I can't understand how you do that, particularly if you are and it's usually from a position of privilege. And I think, you know, I've lived a pretty privileged life, but you can see that, you know, not everyone else has had the same chances. And it's like, really, can't you see that? So, yeah.
And lastly, what's one word to describe each other?
Funny.
Kind.
Oh, how good are you two?
We practice before we came.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
our best
Clearly.
behaviour.
You should stay together. What do you think?
I'm going to. Are you AFL or NFL? NRL rather.
WWE.
Really? Who's your favourite guy? The Undertaker?
No, at the moment, the women's competition is fantastic. Probably Charlotte Flair.
Wow.
This is something else he did not disclose on our first date.
Your children, Ivy and Violet, are so fortunate to have you both.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That is the nicest thing you could ever say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, well, thanks for being on the podcast.
So true.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. It's been such a pleasure.
And they've left the bathroom.
Yeah.
What did you think?
With lots of wisdom.
Well, they've left us with lots of wisdom, and they've walked out with lots of wisdom, but they've shared a lot of it with us.
Yeah. And I love a book that you can just pick up and get little pieces of wisdom like that. It's not like a heavy tome of, you know, difficult words that takes you hours to sort of sift through what they're actually saying. It's a book that you can go to, you can just pick it up, grab a couple of things and go put them into place straight away, go back to it another day. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just, it's really smartly written in that way.
Well, exactly. I like a book that I can walk up to and sort of do a little and stop at a page and read a couple of pages of it. And just their care. And they were so succinct in terms of their ideas and what they... Everything when they answered was like, oh, zingers all the way through. So I will definitely re-listen to this one.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks
brilliant.
so much for listening today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We certainly did.
If you're loving the pod, leave us a rating and a review over at Apple Podcasts. If you've got any questions or stories for us, you can email us at separatebathrooms@novapodcasts.com.au. See you next week.